Welcome to this Leader video update. Again, we're talking to James Twining, editor of the Moonee Valley Leader, and he's coming to us from the Maidstone office. James, how are you today?
Well, thanks, John. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Let's talk about the week's news and what's coming up next. Fire in Ascot Vale.
Yes, John, a scare for tenants in Housing Commission flats in Ascot Vale on Wednesday morning when an explosion ripped through one of the third-storey apartments. 12 people had to be evacuated by the MFB, including a pregnant woman who fell over during the ordeal. Thankfully, there were no injuries, although one gent was taken to hospital for observation due to smoke inhalation. And he is also receiving help from the Department of Human Services to refit his apartment and find temporary accommodation after what was a pretty serious blaze. It took about 40 minutes for fire crews to bring it under control.
Not a great story there, but we'll talk about some good news coming from the Moonee Valley region in just a sec. But first, let's take a look at the paper coming out for next week. Bernard Salt. This is the second part of a piece that you've done with him.
That's right, John. Bernard Salt is this week talking about the densification of the inner suburbs that he thinks will be taking part from about 2020 onwards. And what he has to say, many people in the Moonee Valley area especially won't really like to hear. He's saying that we can expect a huge influx in the number of multi-level apartments and units and townhouses in the inner suburbs. He says largely that's because of the baby boomer generation getting older. He believes that they won't be able to keep on maintaining their larger quarter-acre blocks and their bigger houses, and will eventually get to a stage when they're in their mid to late 70s and will want to find a more smaller, more manageable accommodation. And that's going to lead to them selling up, and because they want to stay in their community, they have their family around, they have their local shop they've always been to, their local church is probably just around the corner. They're going to want to stay in that community and want to downsize in that same area. So he's saying to residents, you've got to expect a large increase in the number of units and apartments that are going to be popping up over the next 10 or so years. But the issue is at the moment, that, especially with the local councillors, they are very anti-multi-level development at the moment. Jan Chantry, who is one of our councillors, saying that we don't want them in our areas, we want them in activity centres, made hubs around the city, instead of being plonked in the residential area. So it's some pretty interesting comments from Bernard Salt, and interesting insight as to what he thinks will be happening over 10 years. It's likely.
It certainly could be an interesting issue as it goes on. Let's take a lighter look at a piece of news this week, and finally we can declare a swan song to the story of the Swans that has been around the media in the last few weeks.
I certainly hope so, John, that this is the final chapter in this story. It has been dragging on for a while, but great news that Dane the Swan from Queen's Park in Moonee Pines has found new love, we've been told, by the conservationists who have been keeping an eye over him at the moment. This is, of course, the swan whose first female mate was killed allegedly killed by stone-throwing teens who we believe are going to be charged by police. Now, what's happened this week is that he's found a new swan from Melbourne Park on the other side of Melbourne. She's come over with him back to Moonee Pines. She's also brought over with him, though, her mate, I guess her first husband. She's a divorcee, we've been told. I'm sure that's impossible in the bird world, but so we have been told. And there was a bit of a fight, apparently, between the two males for ownership of this female bird. And Dane, the male swan has won out, and she's sticking about at the moment. So, good news, I guess. So the sad news was, of course, that the egg that he was nesting on died. The Melbourne Zoo staff weren't able to keep it alive. But there is hopes now that he and the new swan will be making new baby swans, hopefully, in the near future.
And it seems also that the entire swan menagerie, actually I don't know what the plural of swan is, the whole gaggle maybe? Anyway, they seem to have also hit the social media trail now, with both Dane and his new lass getting Facebook pages.
Yeah, a bit of a light-hearted take, I think, on this whole story, John, and there's somebody has set up a Facebook page for Dane the Swan, who has been giving us regular status updates, such as going for a swim and going to see the movie Black Swan. But not serious, of course, but just a bit of a light-hearted take on it all.
Well, we do wish Dane and his partner du jour the best of luck from leader to the Swans. Lastly, let's take a look quickly at our state budget coverage, which is coming up next week.
That's right, John. It's federal, state and local government budget time, and we had a chat to our local MPs just to find out what their key priorities were for the state budget. We also heard from one of our federal MPs as well as to what he wanted to see, but they were of course pretty general in their comments, keeping their cards very closely to their chest.
The key thing is to come out of the wish list for
The state budget were mainly what we usually see in health, transport and education. A key priority was, of course, the upgrade to Eston Keilor College, which was promised an upgrade by the previous Labor government before the election last November, but that, of course, fell through when the Liberals took power. So we've also had a chat to our residents as well to find out what they wanted to see in the budget, and that, of course, will be in Monday's edition of the Moonee Valley Leader.
Fantastic, and you can see our state budget coverage live at moonevalleyleader.com.au, also the Twitter feed MV Leader, or at MV Leader, and you can see Melbourne-wide coverage of the state budget at Leader News or other Leader newspapers' websites. James, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.